Let's see. And hello. Welcome to the Conformity Farm stream. We are working on the latest and greatest book. It is Friday. Friday is my full day of work. Thanks for joining. It's a little surreal to be on camera, but here I am. So there's a lot of different ways that we can do this. I can do this. I think that going on camera is actually very beneficial for the stream because I really am doing the full work here. There's really nothing to hide at this phase. And it's all content, so let's do it. Alright, let's see. Let's move this over. Here's another thing too, is that there's some stuff I want to watch. Let's watch my history. I was listening to this thing about...
On that fateful day, we need to start off by establishing the full timeline of events. To begin
so you guys are just going to hang out with me while I figure this stuff out.
Norm Macdonald was headlining a national comedy tour, and alongside him he brought Jim Breuer and Darrell Hammond on the road to open for him. At the time, this was the golden years of Saturday Night Live, and most comedy fans were following just about everything the show did. Jim and Darrell were well known on Saturday Night Live for their impressions, but Norm Macdonald had obviously been a much bigger standout in draw.
What I was doing last night was I was doing each page, just doing a one-over for about 5 minutes. And we're going to continue that process, but we're going to be a little more surgical about that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some stuff off camera
for the Iowa Athletic Hall of Fame in Finkbine Golf Course renovations. To do this, they had plans of running a golf tournament that weekend, and then
so there's some aspects of this that I'll have to do off camera because it'll just be too boring. And it's really just fixing plot holes and things like that and getting details worked out. Writing dialogue. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to do some drawing for a while, for as long as I can, really. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pack up everything I have, or export it as a PDF rather, and take a look at it through the laptop, take it to the library down in the West Loop, and then go to the rock climbing gym afterwards. But just get the details figured out. And then once I'm done with that, I'll come back and I'll stream again. So... We're doing this. We're gonna get through this. Okay, let's hear more about Norm Macdonald. See, part of my process is how ADD I am, or ADHD rather.
Following this, there would be a corporate comedy show headlined by Norm Macdonald to entertain the people playing in the golf tournament and their families. This was set to be one of the best nights in comedy history, where everyone had a great time enjoying some good old-fashioned family-friendly stand-up comedy. Or so the Germans would have us believe. Before we proceed, if you're a fan of comedy, you probably know that Norm Macdonald, before he became a deeply closeted dead man, was incredibly well known for being a surgical master of misdirection. Whatever expectations Norm would set for you, he would shatter them right before your eyes and leave you laughing your ass off. Whether it was the Comedy Central roast where he was told to be shocking and vile, so he told clean jokes from an old school joke book, or telling Artie Lang in San Francisco to not do any gay jokes, just to turn around and do exclusively gay jokes during his own set, Norm Macdonald would often surprise everyone, and this made him one of the funniest guys on the planet. So at this comedy show in Iowa, there were
what I need to do? I need to get through
children
this
and entire families showing up to watch the SNL cast members. Since the comedians were on TV,
this guy's leading up a lot to explain something. He's saying a lot of nothing. Alright, so one thing we need to do, and this is what's nice about having the camera on, is that you can see what I'm doing instead of seeing on camera, or seeing on this, the whatever you would call it, on the screen, nothing coming up. So what I need to do is, let's name these characters. And then we'll do each scene breakdown. And then from there I should be good. naming the characters, each scene breakdown. From there, I should be able to make it work. Okay, let's see what we have here. I'm not much for doing, you know what I'm kind of doing? I'm perpetually staying in the process of holding on to the feeling of this scene instead of actually getting, how would you say, the details of it down. So this part of the process, I would say that after this book is done, I don't think I'm going to have this approach to material anymore. I think the grandiose lesson that I learned was that you have to be surgical about things. Because even though it's cheap for me to draw, because it doesn't cost me a bunch of money up front, because I have the skills, right? Like I can create something from nothing, but that's still my time, and that time eats in to other goals, which I might want to be more prolific, get more projects out. Okay, so Oliver's Dream is actually a pretty good. Those are pretty good. I don't remember how long ago I did those, but those worked out pretty well. And then what do we got here with the Owl God? We got this one. This is the drawing. This is the drawing that basically had me hicking up. This became a hiccup in my system because it was so difficult to get through this drawing that I had an injury that went down this finger. It still exists, but it just doesn't. It's not so bad that I can't draw anymore. But that's the reason why I'm standing while I draw. But it goes down this finger, through my forearm, up the side of my arm. It's not my bicep, but it's like on the, I don't know if that's a tricep or what. I should know anatomy better. And then it goes into my shoulder. And there was like a point where it was so excruciating that I really didn't want to do anything with it. But still got to work. So I took the last couple of weekends off from drawing, and I don't feel super great about it. But I had to rest. Okay, so this is interesting. Chart it in the prison, some silly stuff. So we're going backwards. Okay, so there's still a significant. This is basically chapter 1 and chapter 2. So the way that this might actually work is I might actually put out a book and then have to put out another book. I don't know, we'll see what happens. I have a deadline, and then within that deadline, we're going to publish. So wherever the book is where it'll be. Because I have enough material here to publish. Also, waiting on C2E2, seeing if they're willing to accept me in writer's block. They rejected me for Artist Alley, but I think after they rejected me, it almost became pretty obvious that I actually am not fit for Artist Alley. Artist Alley is a different type of thing. Those are people who oftentimes make merch based off of mainstream characters and stuff like that. And then since I'm creating my own, and also I have my own book, it would be kind of weird to have me around there. But I didn't know that Artist Block existed, so, and then we have the whole thing with JobBot. Interesting. What are we gonna do here? I got this ship. I got some of this stuff with Jammer. This might be a pretty interesting one to do. Always felt weird about that one. There's something that's going to happen with JobBot that's separate from the actual core story. I don't know if I'm going to do comic strips of JobBot, so it's there will be single pages, or I'm going to make it like it's its own story, side story with JobBot, because JobBot's story is, even though it interweaves with the major story, it kind of throws me off. It kind of throws things off a little bit. Okay, these are interesting. Man, I wish these were dated. So we got JobBot stuff. We got war stuff. We got Charta being a badass. more war stuff. I wonder if I have the whole thing. I bet I have the whole thing on here. Let's take a gander, huh? All right. Yep, this is from the last one. Okay, so this is the entire book, actually, right here. And what we have here is, let's take down this reference. What we have here, we'll do this in rainbow colors. So the opening is war, right? So we have the intro and things like that, but we are basically at war. And so we can maybe explain more of why we're at war. So we're at war, and then we learn more about these characters. It's important to tell this story in a way that if you've never picked up another one of the books, that things make sense. And that's actually one thing that's kind of been slowing me down on this, actually. Oh wow, there's a whole row of pages that got bumped out. Anyway, yeah, so this is war. This is, let's get rid of this. This is all war. So at that point, we don't know anything about the space cats yet. So we do need to interject that. That needs to be understood in these first few pages. So that'll have to be changed. So this is still all war. Okay, this is Space Cats, and then this is actually the beginning of the Muddy Seven. But you could still argue this is part of the war. So what I'm going to do is, this story is pretty wide. I'm going to keep narrowing it and narrowing it. I'm going to start getting more incestual about the story. The story is actually going to look into itself. So it's the same thing. This is the interweaving of the Space Cats. And, okay, so this is where it tapers off. We would actually say it's war until about right here. So now let's go orange. And so what we do here is, this is the introduction to the Space Cats, and we hang out with them for a while. And within this aspect, we need to know who they are, what their motivation is. And we should know that earlier too, but we're going to spend time with them. And then the tricky part is, when do I go back to the war? And also, there's this whole bit with Jobbot. It almost seems like it's kind of distracting, this whole bit with Jobbot. I almost feel like we should do Jobbot a little bit before as well. So there may need to be, let's do one more layer. I'm going to pick a color on the opposite end. Let's do green just because. So if I'm going, here's the opening. It's like 1, 2 pages, 3, 4 pages, 5, 6 pages. Here we are, and this is what's happening and why. So I would say actually in here, we should know about JB and the Space Cats. Yeah, that's not too bad. So within the first few pages, we need to know who we're paying attention to. And then we can come back to the rest of the stories. I feel better about that. And so if we look back, yeah, and then we should also, Space Cats, which also allows us to know about Charda and his dynamic. But we open up with the mud pillows. And then we know about Jobbot's ambitions. All those things need to be clear for these scenes to hop around, in my opinion. So that's not bad for the beginning, and I don't know how many pages that is. It kind of doesn't matter right now. Well, let's see, 1, 2, well, this is 1, 2, 3. So within the 10th page, we've rolled into everything. I think that's fine. It's a long story. And then at the end, what needs to be expanded upon is the collapse. I would say collapse. of the Space Cats. Space Cats collapse needs to be maybe a bigger splash. We should tighten everything else up in more about what's happening. Because we actually return, once we learn about the Space Cats, we actually return to the war, which I would argue is somewhat distracting. So I'm actually considering taking the Charter War, not cutting it down, but cutting it down to really the first act. And because it's bleeding itself into the second act, and I don't want to do that anymore. I want the war to kind of be over around the time that we understand what's happening at the Cat Federation, and getting more information about the Cat Federation, and then realizing that Planet Flufferton can kind of rest because we know the outcome, we know what's going on with them. So when we cut back, it can still be kind of funny, some of the stuff that the Mudpillows do. Like, their ignorance is part of the humor of what I'm trying to accomplish here. And I think that works. So there needs to be an expansion of the plague. So I should spend more time on the expansion of the plague. You know what's interesting? War and plague. Like, it's not like I'm giving people anything that they haven't witnessed themselves in this day and age. A lot of my first drafts just really come from real life. And then when I do more and more drafts, I can pull it farther and farther away. But when I do my first drafts, I notice when I look back, I'm like, oh, you've experienced this. Okay, so what drawing are we going to dive into? I kind of want to do one. Let's do one that's not that well detailed yet. Maybe one of these Space Cats ones. Yeah, there you go. I take my own advice. I'll listen to myself. Uh-oh, I'm going to be a silent drawer today. Oh, yeah, here's some of these other drawings that I did. So there's an update to this stuff. I did do an update. Let's go some of these, the Space Cat plague stuff. There's that. That's not too bad. It's not quite a plague yet. It's just we're kind of meeting them. And there's the Tower of Babel, which is a funny one. They're biblical parallels. I spent a lot more time in the church than people probably wouldn't assume. So I think a lot of these like epic stories come from that. I need to read more literature. Read less Bibles is what people tell me. Yeah, people tell me all the time. No one's ever said that. Tim, you gotta read less Bibles. Read less Bibles. Here we go. Here we go. Let's do something in here. There's somewhere in here is a Cat Federation meeting. Is this it? No. Is this it? No. Might be later in here. No, I'm not seeing it. Yeah, I'm not seeing it on here. There's like an audience shot that I have here. Maybe in here? That's not a bad one. That'd be a good one to work out. Yeah, where did they go? There's one where they're sitting at panels. Maybe here? No, here? No. I already looked over here. What in the world? Isn't there one where they show up? It's hard for me to see these. Where are these? They're right before. before. Where are they? There's ones where there's like people in the crowd. Oh, it's way before that. So it's before that war stuff. Okay, and then it's within the middle of the fighting. So we got to look for that color one with Charta overlooking the battlefield. So it's farther up than I thought. It's somewhere in here. That's actually a pretty good one to develop. All right, here we are. There we are. Let's develop this one with keycats. Develop this one with keycats. All right, here. Maybe we'll separate this and do this one. I don't remember where I got this reference. Alright, let's drop it down. Drop it low, drop it low, drop it low, drop it low.
Expectation that they would be TV clean in their act, similar to Saturday Night Live. The audience was absolutely massive too. At the University of Iowa, the comedy show took place at the Hancher Auditorium, which seats just under 2,000 people. Jim Brewer actually recounts this event on Theo Vaughn's this past weekend, and in a comedy set he posted on his own YouTube channel. And he talks about how Norm was spending time with the governor. Watch this.
This is the first time me touring with a star.
Okay.
We go to the airport and people are like, oh my God, you're Norm Macdonald. Like, wow, this is everywhere we went. Oh my God, you're Norm Macdonald. We show up at the university. He's like, I gotta go golfing with the governor tomorrow. Maybe fucking golf. Governor?
Yeah, what is that game where you hit the
Right?
thing?
So I'm like, he's with a governor. This is huge.
I show you this just to really emphasize how big of an event this was in Iowa and how the entire city was all but idolizing Norm before the comedy show took place. Furthermore, there's a podcast episode with Tom Segura, Brian Redband, and a guy named Mike Bridenstine who was in attendance at this comedy show in 1997 and recounts his experience there. I'll show you a little bit of it here.
So this is
There are old people there. There are little kids there.
so it's a huge event,
Yeah.
and
There's thousands of people there.
it's billed as family night.
Family night. Okay. So, Comedy Sports goes up first. They're whatever the fuck they are.
Right. Okay.
Then Daryl Hammond goes up and does impressions. He's completely it's going great. Norm Macdonald headlines. The newspaper the next day estimated that Norm had walked 80% of the audience.
Oh my God! How many
Wow.
people are there?
There are thousands of people there.
Thousands.
Wow.
But he goes, yeah, I used to be married to my wife, and I used to jack off to my wife. People start like looking around, like, oh, so what's going on? He goes, yeah, this one I saw is a beautiful woman gets f***ed by a pig. People are lining out. He's like, yeah, big fat pig. It's a beautiful woman.
Absolutely unreal. Norm Macdonald did a clean comedy show that was billed as family night, and to open the show, Norm just immediately goes filthy. The reaction to Norm's set was so negative that the University of Iowa Athletics director, Bob Bowlesby, issued an apology to the town the morning after. He went on the record to say, quote, to call it off-color would be a rather significant understatement, end quote. Bob Bowlesby said his 4 children were in the audience along with other children, and he and many parents hustled their children out of the auditorium, and he also estimated that Norm walked 80% of the audience, which was mainly the older folks and their children. However, according to Jim Brewer, the only people that stayed to watch were the college kids, and they were absolutely loving Norm's act.
I never saw a place clear out. It looked like a fire alarm was going off. But the college students were staying, and they were howling with laughter. And he...
As mentioned earlier, people were grabbing their children and sprinting out of the auditorium
Well, I think you
like
should
there
be
was
aware
a
if there's
fire,
kids in the
and Norm
audience.
just soldiered on and continued to do his off-color material. According to Jim Brewer, as Norm noticed more people leaving, he even commented on this in the middle of his act and playfully sneered at the people as they left. Check this out.
And then in the middle, after about 15 minutes, he goes, Jesus Christ, what are you want? Fucking airplane jokes? You want fucking 7-Eleven jokes? Jesus Christ. out of here.
So Norm didn't slow down for a second and just continued to be absolutely filthy on stage. Apparently during Norm's set, Bob Bowlesby said they were trying quite literally everything in their power to get him off stage, and Norm just wouldn't budge. In the process of Norm mortifying over 1,000 people with his vulgar jokes at a clean comedy show, Norm would then be vilified by the state of Iowa. According to Jim Brewer, the governor went on TV and publicly condemned Norm's actions and also rescinded his invitation to the golf tournament.
The next day, in the paper, USA Today or the Gazette, they're like, Norm McDonald's out.
Wow.
Governor wants him out of the state.
Governor wants it.
Bro, get out of my state!
This whole situation in Iowa turned Norm into an infamous comedian who was widely disliked amongst a lot of the residents of the city. Absolutely fucking hilarious. Not only do diehard comedy fans like us find this funny, but Norm himself finds this really funny too.
Don't make assumptions.
I'll prove that in just a little bit.
But I do agree.
However, after the performance, Norm would go on to do several interviews about the entire Iowa debacle. One of them was an interview Norm did where this guy, who I cannot find the name of, asked him about the show, and he then described it for us a little bit.
What could you possibly have said to them to make 80% of them walk
Well,
out?
it wasn't a speech. It was like some stand-up.
Yeah, well, what did you say to them?
I was just talking, like, I don't have my stand-up act. I just talk about whatever I'm thinking about. Like,
So what'd you
at
say?
the time, it was about having sex with an animal. I can't remember what joke, but it was some joke about, like, I said, I feel sorry for the animal because, you know, they get to have sex with a super hot lady, and then the next day they bring him back another pig. You know, because the pig initially, he was having sex with another pig. He didn't know. He was, hey, this is a nice looking thing.
I love how the entire time Norm talks about ruining these people's night, he just has a big smile on his face the entire time. Norm also talked about the show on The Howard Stern Show and details how he was paid $15,000 for the one performance. I couldn't imagine the look on the college organizer's face when they had to hand Norm that check right after that set. I bet it was one of the most awkward exchanges, and Norm probably loved every second of it. Apparently Norm even tried to play golf after the fact, and they wouldn't even allow him on the course. Imagine allowing O.J. Simpson to play golf on your course, but not Norm Macdonald. I mean, this Norm guy must have been a real jerk. Since there's no audio from that night, obviously it's impossible to tell exactly what all the material was that Norm performed besides what was accounted for. Luckily, there's a channel called Norm's Stand-Up Vault that has a snippet of a set that was deemed likely the most similar set list to the one Norm performed at the University of Iowa. I'll show one of my personal favorite parts for your own personal enjoyment. Here it is.
Thank you.
You ever have those friends years ago, hey man, I got a video of a guy fucking a pig. Like, I don't care, I don't want to. That's on my computer. I'm a computer expert.
I'm a computer expert.
Yeah, I'm right into the computer. I got snakes coming out of ladies. I can show it to you. Not in mine. I'm like, that's all right, I don't want to see it.
Now some of you may ask, why did Norm do this? Why did Norm take a clean comedy gig and then do vulgar material? Was it on purpose? Here's the answer. Yes, it was 100% on purpose, and he likely did it for his own entertainment. We know that Norm loves to torture people in a way that makes himself laugh, so he did that to Iowa City. How do I know he loved it? Because according to 98.1 Cook, or as I like to call it, cock.com, in November 1997, the writers at Saturday Night Live visited Norm's office, and inside there was a bulletin board. If you've worked in an office setting, bulletin boards generally contain goals, achievements, or things you or a coworker may be proud of. There were only two things on Norm's bulletin board. One was a letter from Senator Bob Dole, who Norm often impersonated on SNL, and the other letter was from the University of Iowa informing Norm they had withdrawn his invitation to play at the golf tournament. Absolutely hilarious. For this reason and so many more, Norm will always be my hero. As a deeply closeted 23-year-old gay man, I can't help but adore Norm's ability to truly and remarkably do his own thing at all times. All in all, this was the most infamous set in comedy history. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching the
Kind of built it
video
out.
all the
Don't
way
want to
the
get
end.
too
I think this is the most infamous
caught
set
up
in
in
comedy
it.
history.
This might actually
and I really
be
think I laid out
a
exactly
panel
why
that
it
needs
was that
almost
way,
like an
but also
entire
it's one of the
afternoon to
funniest
itself.
stories in
And that's
comedy
not this
history
afternoon.
because
That's
of
not
the
what we're doing
balls that
today.
Norm had to go up there and do that.
So let's put
for a
this
corporate clean
into
comedy
the
show.
overall.
I really hope you guys
I
liked it.
kind of
This is
like
one of
the
my
old
favorite
one.
videos
I've been
made
having
so
those
far.
feelings
If
lately.
you want to support the channel,
But
make sure to
we're
like
not
the
doing
video,
that.
subscribe to
We're
the channel,
gonna
and
fill
turn
it
on
up a
post
little bit more.
notifications down below because that's a free way to support me and it helps the channel grow brick
It's a
by
free
brick.
way to support
Also,
me.
if you want to support
It's a
me further,
free
you
way
can check
to
out the
support
Patreon page down below, where you can
If
get
you
some
don't wanna
exclusive
do
benefits,
free-
like you get to see videos early, you get to see exclusive videos,
Yeah, that's not too
like
bad.
a podcast I did recently.
So maybe
with
I
my
could do a
friend,
medium
and also my
shot
sit at
in
the
here
Tampa Improv. You also get shout outs every video, and you get to
shut
play
up,
a direct
guy.
hand in the direction my channel takes. Shout out to Jason Murray,
Nah, good luck
Ross
to you guy. I'm sure he's
Walker,
a nice
Ethan,
guy.
Thomas Gill.
I enjoyed his video. Okay, so then, yeah, we want to do a middle one here, like this, and then we'll cut into it like this. There we go. And then, so maybe what we could do is we could do some reactions, maybe, based on what's going on. Which is, you know, it's interesting, is like, I know the macro aspect about what's going on, I don't know the detailed aspect of it. So this weekend I'm going to be figuring those things out. And there's a lot of stuff that parallels. So with the mud pillows, it's pretty simple, right? They're like cavemen, basically. But the Space Cats is really built off of a civilization that technically is more advanced than ours. And so that needs to have more thought to it. Otherwise, it's not gonna read right. So this is them kind of reacting for whatever reason. Maybe just kind of looking at each other, because that's what civilized people do. They keep their thoughts to themselves and give looks so that when someone calls them out, they can go, "Oh, I didn't say anything like that." No, absolutely not. But when we all end up with the Neuralink implants, everyone's going to know what we're thinking. So look forward to this new world. You're going to be canceled for your thoughts, as you should. As we should. Okay, good. I'm glad I did that one. All right, let's take a look at what else we got out here. Let's just keep cranking through these. I'm actually going to delete this, otherwise it's going to get out of control. All right, so I got Chart of Fighting. I got plenty of that. We're not going to dive into that today. Let's stay with the Space Cats. What do we got here? I got the drawing of Pumpkin. That's a good one. Gotta delete that. We're really almost done with this, huh? Because I could break this down. Really what I need to do is break it down page by page, panel by panel, and then figure out what panels need to exist in between to keep the continuity and the clarity of the story together. And then from there, I'll look through it to determine the minimum dialogue necessary to get through the story. Because a big part of this brand that I'm building is that I don't want to bog people down with a lot to read. I don't think people want to read a ton. I think they just want to get to it. And it's interesting because a lot of this stuff is written. So I'm going to have to pull out old stuff. Ooh. See, this is where streaming gets tricky. Because at this point, it would behoove me to turn off the stream and turn around and go through my old notes from a few months ago. And a lot of this stuff is actually printed out. And I would do that. But because I'm streaming is just for drawing. I'm going to continue to draw. You got to have the discipline to do the right things. Okay, so these are the scenes I wanted to develop. Let's do another. Oh, this would be kind of interesting where our guy over here gets freaked out by the pillow baby. Let's be maybe over here. I think it's actually towards the end. Is this it? No. No. Here it is. Okay. This is a good one. So here's a couple of panels of finding out that Colonel Spitz is actually afraid of pillows. He thinks they're gross. And so I have this pose here that I came up with, and I kind of just kept it the way it was because I got the essence of the drawing. But I think this should happen inside of the transport ship. So let's pull out another reference from the transport ship, which would be this one. Oop. Are we there? Okay. So let's put this one in here. Okay, this one will be interesting. So based off of this scene here, there's a moment, because I drew this later. I drew the poses a long time ago. God, I couldn't even tell you how long ago, too. I stopped drawing for like a year, so the book's really taking too long. Okay, so to the left here is the actual scene that's been built, and so for continuity, we're going to try to keep things the same here. So maybe what I can do is I can save some time by duplicating this panel and then getting that pose in there. I don't know why I duplicate. It's already here. Well, I guess I know what the original one looked like. So maybe we come in here and we say, I like the idea that Colonel Spitz sticks one hand out with the cane and then his leg up to protect himself. Okay. So let's drop the opacity and give it a shot over here, huh? Based on what we already have. We would say that Oliver would be standing up here with her helmet still on. Putting out the pillow baby like this, with her tuchus out. So then we got this, and then we would have him being like, wait a minute. Well, he's got his cane in his right hand. So maybe what we'll do is we'll put it like this. Leg up like this. Just kind of shift him over like this. So kind of an animated guy. Maybe he tinks her her helmet. Tink. Little tink tink. Little tink tink. Poor little tank tank. Alright, so we got that in there. So I'm doing this pretty rough, but we just got to make sure the poses are right. And then make sure the joints are right. Otherwise I'll blow it. We could try the Kim Jong-gi formula, which is where you put the item in the box. You put the item in a box. I guess we could try that, right? Ooh, it's so tough. No, I'm not going to do it. It puts me out of my comfort zone. I have a zone of comfort. How great does one want to be? Where are we at here? We have that, and then we have the details of the chair. You have the rest of the scene kind of like this, right? And this is him kind of being like, ah. And maybe we got to cut to another panel which actually this could serve as that other panel of some clarity. So maybe what we do is, let's drop this down too. And she protects the pillow baby. I like the idea that Colonel Spitz actually doesn't need a cane. He just carries one around, but every once in a while when he reacts, you realize that he's totally able to function without a cane. Okay, so that her pose should be where she's kind of hugging the thing. That could be a cute moment. Yeah, and actually let's keep that because she's still wearing her helmet. Okay. So we basically have not too bad. I'd like the perspectives to improve a little bit though. Let's erase. What are we doing here? Yeah. Let's erase this. And then, yeah, let's erase this. One thing that's going to make making toys and stuff like that really difficult is how big Jammer's tail is. Oops. Okay, yeah, there's that. Not too bad. And then what we could do is, so we could merge these together. And then what we can do is we can put this as another panel. So let's merge these together. It's the same kind of motion. I will say I'm pretty concerned about, you know, filling in these plot holes. Whoops. Whoops at Christmas. Okay. Okay, we got that. Okay, so we don't need this as much because we already have it technically. So then maybe we could put these next to each other on a page. All right. All right. All right. All right. Okay. Actually, let's merge these. Oops. Merge. Okay, so then we do this. And then what's the next one after that? There's this, and then there's this. Okay, so then what happens is there's this panel. What we'll do is we'll actually make it this panel. These two panels. And in the first panel, actually, Oliver doesn't have her helmet on, so this this drawing here isn't relevant. So we got to delete that. So let's delete that. Let's delete that whole page. There's nothing on there that serves us. Alright, and then what we'll do is we'll take this and put this at the top. Make it a little bit bigger. Yeah. Yeah, this works a little bit better. Alright, cool. Cool, cool, cool. Alright, we're coming around. Do you work in design field related? Yeah, I do actually. I work in why do you ask? The answer is yes. I guess I don't want to talk too much about my work. I work at an NDA business. Let's do this. All right, now let's figure out what other plot hole we're gonna fill in. The whole plot needs to be filled in. So, what do we got here? All right, so we got that part's improved. That should be done too. I feel like a lot of that was already taken care of. That's the thing that bums me out. I feel like there are a few days of work that I don't properly store and I lose out on. So we gotta get a cap on that. Okay. Man, this is really coming together. I guess one thing I could do is I could put together these fight scenes and consolidate a lot of these shots. Like, what am I trying to accomplish? That's not relevant. Maybe I could do this warp. Oh, this will be a cool one. Let's do the one where Charda's looking at a map and telling his little Chardinian generals what to do. That's a cool one. Is this it? No. This one, no. There it is. Let's do this one. This one's a cool one. That's interesting you asked me if I work in a design-related field. It almost makes me think that you know me. If not, it's a fantastic guess. Okay, so he's kind of got these old school papers rolled out. Let's drop the opacity on this. And this one's going to take a little bit of time, so why don't I put some music on? Some music to save us all. Music to save us all. Peaceful? Okay, I'll take it. I'll take the peaceful music. All right, what are we doing here? Am I going to stand up? I wish I had like a stool or something. I don't believe there's a stool in my house. I'll be right back. Oh. I don't know why I looked for a stool. I knew I didn't have a stool. I kind of want to sit and draw. It also says the word design down here, design decision. That's funny. got these little guys. These are little apples. Give me a little bit of energy. We'll get through these sketching moments. Okay, what do we got here? So let's put a layer on top of it. Actually, we'll turn this light off. How you overcome art block. How do you overcome art block? That's a really good question. I'm not sure that I do, honestly. I don't think that I overcome art block. I think that what I do, I'm actually a very difficult person to have any sort of relationship with because I just prioritize this stuff. And so if I have to choose between, I don't think I choose to overcome art block. Oh, you know what? Okay, so giving you that kind of story isn't actually going to help you if you're asking for advice. I would say deadlines. Deadlines, deadlines, deadlines. When I don't give myself a deadline, the project essentially could last forever. Because if you're waiting until it actually resonates with you, or you think it's finally your magnum opus or whatever, then you don't. You just never finish it. It would last forever. And so what I would say is some people don't have the luxury of being able to continuously develop a project, but then that becomes more expensive because time is money in a sense. Not to get kind of like you do have to think in a sense of money because you're making a product. Now you might be expressing yourself, and ultimately a lot of aspiring artists, I think they think, well, once I start expressing myself, I'll finally be the person I've always wanted to be. I mean, everything will be right. Well, here's the thing. It won't be. It's just an attribute of what you do. Your life isn't going to be saved or improved by getting the work or doing the things that you think are important. You have all those problems still exist. It's just that there's this pragmatic aspect. It's interesting. It's like Customato said that there is no difference between the coward and the hero. The coward is a person who made a specific decision, and the hero feels the same issues. They feel the same thing as the coward. They just made a different decision, and that's what defines them. So I don't overcome writer's block. I don't. I have a pretty aggressive deadline for myself. I will say this. Hey, what's up, Kai? I will say this. There is a time to be spent to be creative. So like, I gave myself a lot of time, actually years, to develop this story. And it might be too long. So it's also like a muscle as well, which is being creative and stuff like that. I don't think that there are artist block. I just think that there is a time spent cooking the idea. And the longer I cook the idea and the more time I spend kind of, making the stew, if you will, the longer I spend doing that, the better the story is. It's no different than, Kobe Bryant going to practice 4 hours before practice starts, right? Like, you keep hearing these stories. Well, I do, because in my feed, I love great athletes. I think that if you're a creative, this is one. Okay, so I'll say another thing too. I think that Western civilization has done a disservice to itself by not correlating art and sports together. And it's oftentimes because of how society runs itself when you're a young person, which is that the jocks and the nerds are separate. And I just don't think that's the case. And I don't think that an evolved civilization is going to keep those things separated. I think that the drive that causes someone to pick up the nuance in a basketball game or any type of sporting event, there's an art to what they're doing. And that art is spent developing and learning their body and learning themselves and getting just a little bit better every single day. And I don't think there's any difference between the two. Any of the artists that I've studied that I was like inspired by, I just know, I find out that they spent an incredible amount of time, like an ungodly amount of time, where it's like literally nothing else exists except for what they're doing. So how do I overcome artist block? I don't. There's no replacement for unrequited. That's not the right word. I like the word. I like the way it sounded in my sentence. There is no there's no replacement for putting in the work, and it's uncomfortable, and it's not something that your immediate body wants. Like this morning, I wanted to start earlier today, but I knew it would kill me. I would say this, I'm not even in my most prolific phase. I wouldn't say that. And you know why I know that? It's because I was actually an athlete in school. I know what it feels like when I'm firing on all cylinders, and it's pretty amazing. But the one thing I'm learning as of recently is you kind of have to prime the system. So like on your first day of being prolific, you're not going to get that great of results. And on your second day, and it takes months and months, and then all of a sudden, a year or so in of doing it every single day, I don't know how I get that. I get a ringing in my ears sometimes. All of a sudden, you're moving at a pace where someone else may look at it and say, hey, how do you get to that point? It's like, it's a build-up, man. It's a build-up. It's taken years. So there is no overcoming artist block. It doesn't exist. And it's so crazy because when you're asking questions like that to somebody, you're hoping that there is some sort of like trick or some sort of some sort of answer that can help you get through it, but there just isn't. There's a journey that has to exist with no one else but you. Many people want to climb, you have to climb the mountain to get there. And the mountain is difficult and you can't skip steps. You have to take every single step. And you have to take steps when no one is looking. That's the most important. Can you still do it when no one's looking? I mean, no one's watching the stream, really, But once the book's done, if people really like the book, they'll probably look at these old videos and try to figure out, how this all happened. I actually got a message from someone who bought the book and then found the social media page later, which is kind of cool. The book's only for sale in Chicago physically, but we'll change that. And the other thing too of artist block, it's making a decision. You have to block everything else out except for the thing that you're doing. So you have to say no to basically everything outside of what you're doing. And that becomes difficult, It becomes a lonely road. Oh, I was going to say, you have to climb the mountain, and most people, the large majority of people, want their hand held up the mountain. And it's just no one's going to do it. No one's going to hold your hand while you're going up the mountain. And I'm not saying that to be cruel. I'm saying it because I've been that. I hope that answers your question. Rant. Okay, so the perspective is kind of suffering here. That's okay. Maybe Charta shouldn't be smiling. Maybe she should be a little more serious. These guys are a little too big, too. So I'm actually going to merge this. Make sure I don't have anything that's distorting. He's pointing off the map, so that's a little bit of a problem. So maybe I can kind of pull this out a little bit for the composition. Because these guys are way closer than perspective would communicate. Yeah, something like this. looks like this guy's hanging. Let's get rid of that. Not too bad, okay. Alright, so we're working it out. Let's drop the opacity again. Let's do 1 over on this guy. Maybe get the maybe towards the middle like this. I don't know if this pose is really indicative. It kind of shows how calm chart it is, so I guess that could work pretty well. But he did a very similar pose in the first book. So in the first book, he does something similar. Yeah, it's like this. It's actually this drawing. See it? Okay. Yeah, so he's kind of like pointing at the ground. It's a very similar thing, so I think we can kind of follow that. Arms still extended too much. Yeah, let's get charted down and then I'll figure out the composition, because the heads of the pillows don't really matter, right? Like, let's do this again. Oops. We'll move everything down some more. Actually, we can make it bigger, right? Cool. And it keeps the pillow shorter too, which is very charming aesthetic that I like about this particular story. Can I say something? I've said this before, but I feel like it's worth warranting again. This